This video and all other videos on this channel for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy, Camel, and I think there should be some banners, and I've hidden the tabs because a lot of people seem to get annoyed with the tabs. Now, admittedly, this is a bit jank looking. I've got someone working on a cleaner one, but let me know what you think, right? Are these blue things at the top and bottom of the screen better or worse than what we had so far? Obviously, Bitcoin is at a new all-time high, so we're going to talk about that. I've got some real crack pipery to go through as well, and it may or may not be crazy. It kind of seems crazy, but sometimes in this space, the craziest things end up being the ones that play out. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the bond market. We did kind of touch on it yesterday in the live stream. If you haven't seen the live stream, go and do that. And ultimately, I think it's safe to say we're in that lockout rally, and all we've got to do now is just patiently wait for a cycle low to get behind and then see if we can continue to squeeze even more gains out of this market. My primary focus on this channel for the rest of the year is going to be on finding the actual top for Bitcoin and exiting as close to the top as physically possible. I also wanted to mention that I need people to learn the rules of cycle theory or forever be confused. I see a lot of new people coming into the space, a lot of people that don't understand the rules, and it's clearly visible in the comments that people are making. So since what we do here is cycles, if you don't understand the rules, then you are perpetually going to be confused. Now, I've done my absolute best to make cycles available to everybody. There is a tutorial video which is in the playlist, and it's linked at the end of every video during the outro music as well. So you can go there, it's about 17 minutes long, and you can learn all of the rules of cycle theory so that when you see me playing around with the cycle indicator or marking cycle lows on the chart and that kind of thing, you will at least know and understand why I'm doing it and what the rules are. I've also created a cycle PDF that you can download from the store, which is also in the pinned comment and description to every video. And that contains absolutely everything I know about cycle theory, including some details that are not in the tutorial video, like subtle nuances and specific characters and a table of counts and that kind of thing. We also have the website camelfinance.co.uk. And if you sign up in the members hub, there's a whole heap of cycle theory. There are free courses you can take. There are guidebooks. Literally hours and hours and hours of cycle knowledge, cycle stuff. There is also stuff on trend lines, hyperwaves, macro, all sorts. And of course, if you don't even want to learn the cycle theory, you can just apply an indicator and it will pick most of the lows for you. So there are no excuses. If you put in the work, you will be able to reap the benefits like many people here will attest to. Before I show you some ridiculously bullish charts for Bitcoin with some extremely high targets and that crack pipery at the end as promised, I wanted to mention that on Saturday, we're going to be launching a new feature in the Slice program, which is a one-to-one direct line to the Slice mentors. This is only going to be available for 15 people. And so this is your fair warning. We're going to be launching it on Saturday. I anticipate it's going to be extremely oversubscribed. But on Saturday in the weekend's deep dive video, we're officially going to announce it. I'll give you the link and it will be available for just 15 people as a direct line to me for one-to-one mentorship. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe, notifications on if you're interested. Now, shout out OV Crypto because I really like this. As OV is pointing out here, we have got two possible paths going forward for the rest of this cycle. One is that we're about to top for this daily cycle, head down to that daily cycle low early June, around June the 6th, and then we probably are going to pop up to much higher prices. But the real question is, are we then going to chop around and consolidate and have this summer lull before finally finding a weekly cycle low in October and having that final push to the upside? Or are things about to get extremely insane? Are we going to see the banana zone type deal play out, which might look a lot more like this, okay? Shallow pullback to the cycle low, big push, shallow pullback to the cycle low, big push. And this will mark the top for the weekly cycle from here and will potentially mark the top in the major 4-year cycle. If that's the case, then we would come down here quite significantly below where this is marked, I would think. Find that weekly cycle low, left translate and fail, and in doing so, head down to that 4-year cycle low mid to late 2026. I want to be really clear here because whilst I'm extremely bullish, I have been bullish, I continue to be extremely bullish Bitcoin. Remember, I keep saying the later we get in the cycle, the more people are going to move the goalposts and the more the targets are going to get higher, because that's generally what happens every single time. So it was only a little while ago that people were saying, you know, 73K was the top. The 5.3 rule said 84 or 85K, whatever the number was. People were saying, no way it goes above 100, no way it can get past 120. Now I think it's pretty consensus that we could see 150. It wouldn't be beyond the realm of expectation. But based on this measured move, okay, this is gold on the left-hand side. And notice what we do here is a big cup and handle that then breaks out to the upside. And if we measure this cup this base here from top to bottom and then extrapolate it out, you can see gold actually hit it, made target to the tick. If we do the exact same thing to Bitcoin, this measured move here actually projects a 280k Bitcoin target. Now, I've been quite consistent in saying I don't think anyone should discount those kind of numbers. But believe me, if we do start to really push up towards this target, by the time we get north of 150k, you're going to see many people swap from a 280 to 300k target to 500k, 600k, 700k, a million, okay? People will move the goalposts, people will get greedy and complacent as we approach the top. And it's going to be extremely important to manage where we are in the 4-year cycle and not fall into this trap of thinking it's going up forever, Laura. But make no mistake, if it did hit 280k, that would merely be the completion of a technical measured move. It would not be beyond the realm of possibility. It would not be totally unexpected. It would simply be a chart making a technical target. So again, I remain extremely bullish here. I also found this Elliott wave count from Paul that perfectly aligns with my expectation of that cycle low into June the 6th. Take a look at this, okay? So probably on our way to that final 5 here. Big ABC correction down lasting approximately 2 weeks, which would be the last quarter of the daily cycle, 60 days, into June 6th timeframe for a daily cycle low. And then, if this Elliott wave count is correct, we go on to the 3. And the 3 should be very, very strong, very, very powerful. So I like the confluence between the Elliott wave count and the cycle theory. And as promised, we also have some crackpipery to go through. Bitcoin to 600k. Now, it's not impossible, right? It's a market. Anything and everything is on the table all the time. But like I said, expect people to keep moving the goalposts, expect the targets to get higher and higher and higher, and expect people to get extremely greedy and complacent here. And if you think I smoke a lot of crack, take a look at Fred here, okay? Timeline 90 days from Monday, July 21st. We start at 150k. Okay, so we're already projecting 150k by July 21st. But Fred here is saying we're going to end at 600k Bitcoin and 10k gold, with the Dixie collapsing from 96 to 68. This really would speak to something we have never seen before, with the US 10 yield spiking to 9.2% before being frozen by the Fed. Now, I don't know how likely this is, but as we were talking about briefly in the live stream yesterday, this is a higher high. I did not want to see that. And as I said in the live stream yesterday, from the 10-year yield, I need to see this thing pretty much top here, right now, and head much, much lower, much, much faster. Otherwise, we're going to be at the risk of seeing the yields keep climbing, which of course means there is no buyer for the bonds, okay? That means people are still selling bonds. There is no buyer for the government debt. And if we do continue to see the yields come up like this, it makes the country even more broke, running an even larger deficit than it already has. And there will still be no buyer for the US debt because the whole situation is deteriorating. And as I was speculating on the live stream yesterday, if we do see a massive yield run here and a massive bond sell-off, it's entirely possible the Fed is going to be forced to print money and be the buyer of its own debt, its own buyer of last resort, because there's no one else to buy the bonds and therefore there's no way to get the yields to come down. Needless to say, if the Fed is forced to start printing and buying its debt, Bitcoin, which is the black hole for liquidity, and gold, remember, are going to go to the moon and beyond. It's important to point out, this is not a call or a prediction. This is me simply observing the charts and saying, if the yields continue to run like this, which was not my expectation, the Fed may actually be forced to become the buyer of last resort. And of course, that means printing. Printing means all assets, gold, etc., go to the moon. So I don't know how likely it is that we can actually see the yields reach 9%. I don't know how likely it is they can even reach 6.5%. But if they do start to climb, I think it's safe to say the higher these yields go, the more likely it is we're going to see emergency printing by the Fed, and the more likely, therefore, that much higher targets for Bitcoin become possible. So the scenario here Fred outlines is the phase 1, the breach. A 200 billion treasury auction which is barely covered. Again, there's no buyer for this debt. We see headlines like treasury buyers are missing in action, and the Fed is going to hint at extraordinary measures being required, i.e. emergency printing. And keep in mind, printing is supposed to be done with rates at 0. At or near 0 rates are required for QE to be truly effective. And the fact that we've got rates as high as we have, and a Fed stubborn to cut, means that things could get extremely interesting, extremely fast here. And again, if they're going to hint at extraordinary measures in printing, this could entirely mean that Bitcoin sniffs out the incoming liquidity, as well as gold moving higher. The interesting thing about this gold to 4,200, a lot of people say, no way, gold's topped, blah, blah, blah. But remember, I've been showing the same fractal on gold for months now, months and months and months, ever since we got that true breakout and first went publicly long on the channel. Actually, it was the second time we went long because we bought this breakout here out of the 8-year cycle low, ducked out, missed all of this, and then we got long again on the breakout. Okay, and since then, it's been long and strong. We've been playing this by miners and silvers and all sorts, and this is not yet discounted. Okay, this is absolutely still on the table, even if it takes a little bit more time to work out. Something like this, okay, is entirely possible in my view. And by the way, this fractal is not stolen from the crypto market or found in an altcoin and I've overlaid it. This is literally the 70s parabola all the way from back here, okay? This is where I got this fractal from. And again, this is that middle section where I just dragged it down and said it might take a bit longer to work out, okay? But right now, we're right about here somewhere. Okay, so it could certainly be we're about to break out, have a consolidation, and then pop again. And that's just what gold did before. So I haven't found some fractal and tried to force it to fit from an altcoin market. That is literally gold's price action from the 70s. And I think the backdrop is kind of similar, to be honest. I think this is a central bank markup campaign, and I ultimately think they're going to reval this thing later in the decade. So this crackpipery is not super crackpipery at this stage. The speculation is BRICS are going to announce independent global payment rails settled in gold and Bitcoin. Has this been the plan all along? Did they know the dollar was going to die? Did they not want to hand it over to a rising competitor in competition like China, for example? And did they know that by being stubborn and orchestrating a controlled demolition, they'd be forced to print eventually so that they could roll out this new global system with gold and Bitcoin backing? This is highly speculative, but I don't think we can discount it. And especially where we are in the major 4-year cycles with the backdrop of gold looking like this, we're actually on track for something insane to drive these markets in this type of manner. By August the 4th, Fed is speculating that the pension funds are going to announce an inability to meet redemptions. The Fed will have to step in and do yield curve control, capping the 10-year at 6.5%. The dollar will again begin free fall. Why? Because there is a loss of confidence in this country due to its death spiral in its debt system. Bitcoin, apparently 200k, right? 5,800 gold. Again, it sounds insane, but 5,800 gold by September, according to this fractal, before then, actually, right? We could see this as early as the 22nd of September. So just a month or so later than Fred here is speculating. And Bitcoin at 215k by August, is that really out of the question? Or would this just be, where's July, August? You know, we would be somewhere up in this neighborhood. Is that entirely impossible? I don't think it is. I don't know where this comes from. Germany announcing a 10% gold reserve backing for the euro. I don't know, to be honest. That seems like raw speculation, or maybe I'm just totally missing the point. This may lead to other areas moving FX reserves to Bitcoin. Tether issuing a new Bitcoin-backed stablecoin. What could possibly go wrong? But Bitcoin at 265k, gold at 6,700. Again, 6,700? I mean, that's 7,300 right there. It's not entirely out of the question if you ask me. Do we then see the onset of the rollout of a new system, this digital stability unit, and start to explore FedCoin, right? Is this going to be the moment? Are they going to blow this thing up in a controlled demolition so they can usher in the CBDC in disguise, okay? The CBDC that doesn't identify as a CBDC, such as FedCoin or maybe even USDC, the Circle stablecoin. And again, whilst I'm saying controlled demolition, we're talking about risk-off assets here, okay? I know gold is traditionally known as a risk-off asset. Bitcoin is classified by most, remember, as a risk-on asset. Okay, most people think this thing is directly correlated to the NASDAQ, and whilst the prices tend to trade in the same direction, under the hood, Bitcoin is the ultimate risk-off, non-correlated asset. Has it been in the charts the whole time that Bitcoin is going to finally mature and become that ultimate risk-off asset, whilst the stock market is going to confirm that lower high and fail the upcoming daily cycle, confirming we're in a bear market as we start to head for new lows? And thus, is the controlled demolition going to kill the economy, the stocks, and real estate prices? All because the US debt markets have blown up and gotten out of control. The only things you're going to want to own, if any of this is remotely close to the truth, are Bitcoin and gold, right? Maybe silver, platinum, but you get the point. Fred then goes on to speculate that the likes of Apple, Tesla, and Google are going to announce Bitcoin accounting conversions. We may get one or two companies, whether it's Apple or not, announcing that they've quietly been acquiring Bitcoin since April, followed by the IMF announcing a new global reserve basket, 50% Bitcoin. I don't know about this, Fred. I don't know about this. Only in our wildest dreams, right? 30% gold, 10% yuan, 10% others, with the Bank of England offering Bitcoin-backed gilt bonds. I mean, this is starting to sound extremely crackpipery for me, and that's saying something. But of course, if any of this stuff does come into fruition, then we are going to look an awful lot like that 2017 fractal for Bitcoin. which of course is this one right here, okay, which takes us up to these ridiculous numbers. Now, I've been very consistent in saying there's no way we get there without a complete paradigm shift. Right, there's no possible way we get there without a paradigm shift. And I've been very consistent in saying, but I think we would do extremely well to just kind of catch up with this part of it and then top. But again, if we're about to see the bond market blow up, if we're about to see the Fed be forced to print, if we're about to see a whole heap of crazy stuff like this, including a dollar restructuring with a new backing and the launch of the CBDC in disguise, whether it's Fed now or USDC, all of this is going to be akin to massive QE, right? Massive printing, massive currency debasement. The Fed balance sheet will expand to 44 trillion. And if any of this is remotely close to reality, we will see Bitcoin up at these insane numbers, gold at these types of insane numbers. What a wild time to be alive. Now, I want to bring it a little bit back down to reality here. Although before I do, can we acknowledge that we may well be in phase 3 of the hyperwave here? And of course, phase 4, if it's to come, would speak to that paradigm shift and some of that crackpipery being real. But as I said, I want to bring it back down to reality here and continue to focus on taking things one day at a time. As I keep saying over and over again, the thing we're looking for now is to find the top and exit at the end of this bull phase of the 4-year cycle. Any pullbacks to cycle lows and high quality setups with high probability outcomes are for me to continue to add. Of course, we do need to see the stock market hold this current cycle low and have a chance of going to new highs. Otherwise, any kind of failure here means we have to officially declare we were right in calling the top here. The top call and trend change reversal signals, third angle, second angle violation, failed daily cycle was doing its job in alerting us to a trend change, and the bear market to begin to unfold would only be reasonable to expect. Now, as I was saying in the live stream yesterday, it's premature to judge this thing until we've seen the cycle low. Okay, and once we've seen the cycle low, if it doesn't fail, it's malpractice to be bearish. But the moment that cycle low fails, it becomes malpractice to be bullish on stocks. And if Bitcoin and gold are going to continue to rip in the face of that lower high confirmation in the stock market, then of course things are going to get extremely interesting and become extremely difficult to deal with. I still want to point at this gold fractal and say do not discount it just yet, because even if we don't break this trend line and start to go immediately, I think it's still just going to end up being a little bit more time required to work this out here. And then I think all paths ultimately lead to much higher gold prices. This is why I've spent so much time in the level 3 members section, adding miners to the longer term accounts. This is why I said it's worth paying a stop to find out here if it's really going to go. And ultimately, I remain the biggest bull in the world on gold. Silver, I missed the breakout opportunity yesterday because I was away with a wife. But I am thinking this might bless us here with a retest and resumption coming up, okay? If it does, then I might be able to get let in even though I was out of the office for the breakout. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. I do have some exposure via SILJ. That looks to be working on a breakout, so we'll see if this can confirm today. And then again, I might add to my position in the level 3 members section. I want to be really, really cautious going forward because the risks are extremely high. And the way we know that for sure is the yields right here. Okay, we have to make sure that this thing tops immediately and moves lower. Otherwise, we have to put all that crackpipe stuff from Fred on the table. That becomes extremely likely if the yield breaks to new highs, right? If we get a new high above about 4.8%, then we actually have to come back here and say this kind of stuff becomes the base case. That doesn't mean I'm calling for 600k or anything like that, but it just means Bitcoin and gold to the moon, stocks and real estate to new lows. And if you really think about it, the whole weekend's deep dive constantly pointing to a controlled demolition, a recession right around the corner. All of the work we've been doing day in, day out on this channel would kind of be coming to fruition, right? It would pretty much just make sense based on everything we've been tracking and continue to track. So what an episode. That was a lot of fun to go through. I love to speculate on this stuff. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Until then, all the best. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
He's the man to see, rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame, sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel